Hello and welcome back to Lessons Learned. I'm Sherry. This is your Wednesday video, and it happens to be the first Wednesday of the month when we do our installment of the block of the month on Garden Charm. This is a 2016 block of the month that we are doing in 2025, and we are in the fourth month, and we're getting ready to do the applique and the joining pieces. So you will actually have 8 of these, so you have 2 in each corner. You'll have 4 that are configured one direction, and then the other 4 will be a mirror image. So just keep that in mind as you're going along constructing your blocks here. I want to show you that we have our fabric key here still that we're using, and I'm going to pull the fabrics that are indicated here. I actually have the original fabrics for the kit. You may be using something else where by now you have assigned a number to match what you've pulled from your stash or a fabric line that you're using. So I can't show you the cutting, but you can get this pattern off of Craftsy. It's still there. There are also videos there by Lynette Jensen, who is the author of this pattern. I can't share them here on my video, but I do want to point out a couple of things on the second one, which says it's a fern green. Whatever green you have, 2656001, whatever you've assigned to that, you're going to want to cut your pieces indicated over here on the bias. So just line up your 45-degree angle on your ruler when you do your cutting, and that way you'll get the bias edge that you need to be able to make this curved shape right here very easily, and it'll lay nice and flat for you. So the first step for me is to pull my fabrics here in this fabric list, press them if needed, and then also this third section where it says floral rose, fern pink, and primrose yellow. I may actually want to throw some starch on those because those will be some of our small pieces that we're going to be dealing with on our applique. And there's curves here, and you know, the more you deal with a piece of curved fabric, the more it wants to fray and pull and bend. So a little bit of extra starch on those fabrics would be a good idea. There's a lot more instructions as far as the applique process goes, and we will get to those later on here in this video. So first I'm going to cut my fabrics, and I'll meet you right back here. Cutting on the bias. I want to show you how to do that if you've never done it before. You see my ruler down here, how it's cocked over to the left, and you can do this to the right as well, depending on if you're left-handed or right-handed. I'm right-handed, so I'm putting my ruler over to the left. I also looked ahead to see that we don't use this fabric, this stem fabric. We don't use it anywhere else in the quilt. So don't be scared to overcut some of the strips. Just make sure you have enough to make those stems according to what the cutting instructions say. So on the ruler here, I have, I don't know if it's going to show up or not, but it says 45 degrees. It's upside down, but it says 45 degrees right there. So that line right here goes to the corner. I'm going to have to put that on the bottom of my fabric, and this is the folded side. So get that straight, nice and straight on there, and then also go over to the tip, just right there, and then start cutting this way. And then once you pull this away, you'll have you'll already have the edge that you need to make your other strips, and you'll just keep moving. They're a certain width, and you just keep going until you know that you have enough. So my ruler here is 8.5 inches wide. Okay, it turns out that it hits about right in the middle here. So I'm going to get some really nice long pieces. I'm not going to have to probably cut down into these corners and get all of these little tiny strips that I have to put together, you know, strips that aren't very long. So I'm getting the longest part. I'm going to be able to use the longest part of my fabric here to get nice long strips and not have to piece them together so much. So I'm just going to make a cut right there, and then I'm going to keep going with those cuts with that ruler on that same angle. And like I said, if you're left-handed and it's easier for you to do it with this way, you just put your ruler on the 45 down on that side. Works the same way. Okay, so here's what you should have. You should have your 8 pieces that your applique is going to be going on. That's the darkest of the 2 light pieces that you dealt with. And then these are the connecting pieces between your applique pieces or blocks. Here are the colors that you're going to use for the flowers and the berries and the centers of the flowers. And then also from your stem fabric, you should have a good amount left like this. So hang on to those. Don't cut up all of it. I don't know exactly what I said in the last clip, but don't cut up all of your fabric on the bias. You only need 8 of these. And so I did have to piece 2 of them to get my 8 pieces that they're wanting you to have. So I just did that like this, just like you do when you do your binding. And, you know, you do those on the bias to spread out the bulk of the seam. Same thing. So I have 8 of these now on the bias. I think I had to cut 10 then because I pieced 2 of them. So I cut out 10 of those bias strips that I showed you earlier. From that piece of fabric, I had this left. I had this on one end and this on the other end. So here's where my strips came from, so to speak. So these leftover pieces and these 3 for the applique, small applique pieces. These are the leaves, flowers, flower center, and berry. I starched them pretty heavily on both sides. Well, not like on the wrong side of the fabric, but like this one is a width of fabric, and I sprayed it on both sides, ironed it one side at a time, of course. And it's kind of cardboardy feeling, so that'll help us in the long run. And so I had done that to this as well. So my next step is to start to get ready to cut out our applique shapes. So let me get set up for that. I'll be right back. Okay, so we're not going to deal with the applique shapes just yet. We're going to do the stems because that's the vines. That's what they're wanting us to do first. And that makes sense because all the other things will be added around it. So it's saying to take this and fold it exactly in half. And remember that this is on the bias. I did not starch this because I do want to have that stretch that I need to make that move where I need it to move. I hope you can see what I'm doing. Here we go. So we're going to fold this in half. I didn't starch it because I want it to be able to move like this. It's a gentle curve. It won't be very hard to get that shape. And we've got a guide to help us get that on there. But first we have to prepare this. And the first thing to do is to fold it in half with the wrong sides together. So you should be looking at the colorful side of your fabric at this point. The right side. So you're going to press those and keep the raw edges aligned. And then after that, we're going to stitch 1/4 of an inch away from that raw edge. And then we're going to sew it again this way. So let me go ahead and prepare one of these so you can see what I mean. Alright, so I have my wrong sides together. I ironed it directly in half where my raw edges were. You see I have 2 raw edges here. And then I did the scant 1/4 inch, which kind of turned out more like almost a full 1/4 inch. But the next step is to fold this over to be a 1/2 inch. So you're going to want to go over to the ironing board and iron this over. And basically on this side you have your raw edges on the inside, but then you also want to hide your stitches. It might be advisable to use a green thread just in case your 1/4 inch, your scant 1/4 inch turned out like mine, more like a full 1/4 inch. I'm not sure how I missed that, but I think I can hide this okay because we're going to be stitching down the very edges of this onto our block. So let me get the rest of mine made from my other blocks and then I'll show you how to apply it. Okay, so I did change out to the green thread so you can't even see it now. So that's good. And then I also got this carrying hot ironing ruler out, and it's already set up in 1/2 inch. So the goal is to get a 1/2 inch finish here with your edge. So if you want to use a ruler like this, I already tested it out to see about where it would be. There you go. You see this mark right here is my first 1/2 inch increment. So you can take your ruler and get that folded edge right on the 1/2 inch. And then just go ahead and iron. You can use this right with the iron. It won't melt. So that's how you can get a really good consistent 1/2 inch. So let's do another section so you can see again. It's a little bit fiddly, honestly, but it does give a nice edge. A nice even 1/2 inch. If you get it in there and go ahead and get that ruler in the right spot, it makes a really nice edge for your stem. So I'm struggling a little bit right there on that one, but I can almost eyeball it better than using the ruler. Almost. The ruler does give a little bit better control over that 1/2 inch. So you can see here, it's just right beyond your stitches is where you lay it, bring it over, and it's just right there. Just keeping that folded edge right on that. This is actually not the way I would have made the stems. This is a little bit it's really strange to have I mean, you can make a loop and turn it, or you can take your raw edges and bring them toward the center and iron them and not have to do this stitch. But I'm trying to follow the directions and learn something new. And, you know, just because something seems the wrong way or maybe not your preferred way doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. You might like it. So I feel like that turned out pretty nice using this ruler too. I think the two combined, doing it their way with the raw edges and then folding again and then using the 1/2 inch heat ruler, did give me a really nice even stem. So I'm going to continue on with this method on the rest. I already have them all sewn with the scant 1/4 inch, and I did make the scant 1/4 inch this time. So that did give me a little extra room for when I do fold this over, I can get the 1/2 inch I'm supposed to have. 1/2 inch finished is what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and finish these, and then we'll attach them. Like it says here, we'll be attaching them to our rectangle. So you may be asking, how do I get this onto this? Well, we're going to have to do some surgery to these papers right here. Let's take a look at these papers. Okay, we're going to have to attach them together. If you'll notice, you have a solid line all the way around the pattern. You have a dotted line, which represents your 1/4 inch seam allowance all the way around the inside of your pattern. But then you also have these dotted red lines here on the paper. If you've got this in black and white, it's going to be black. But they are lines that extend beyond the solid line. And they're only vertical. So you have one here, 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 and here. So you're literally going to cut on those red lines on this paper. You're going to cut this paper. And then you're going to attach these where those red lines would have met. And that, you know, your cut paper will be right there together. And then on the back, you can scotch tape it or use washi tape or whatever. Washi tape is good because you can take it back apart and then store your pattern in 3 pieces like that. Or you can just do it with scotch tape and then fold your pattern and put that back with the rest of your pattern pages that you have. So I'm going to go over to the cutting table. I'm going to cut this pattern out. I'm going to cut all of this stuff away around here on the solid. So I'm literally going to cut this out on the solid line after I get these taped together where the red lines would be meeting. Ta-da! Here's our pattern. You can actually still see the red lines. I probably could have cut just a little bit over the red lines and you wouldn't have seen those, but it's just such a minute measurement of difference. I'm not worrying about it. So I just used washi tape on the back. But how's that help me? Well, let me show you. I'm going to put this over top of this. You can't see it right. Well, you could pin this together accurately, put it up onto a window, and maybe be able to see through there. But I happen to have a light box. Let me show you what I mean. So here's my Caterpillar Glow. I'll put a link in the description box for this extra big light box. It's very nice. I really enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it on the brightest setting. And what I'm going to do is put my piece of fabric that I'm supposed to put my applique on over the pattern. And I'm going to clip it because if I don't, it's going to move when I start trying to mark on here what I'm doing. So if you can see that, the design is underneath. The design on the pattern is underneath. It's shining up from underneath on my fabric. And then I can actually just mark here where it goes. Now I could mark it with a pencil line all the way through the middle of that for my stem. And then just lay this on the middle of that and carry on. I could actually pin it based on what I'm seeing here through the light. I could do that and sew it afterwards. I have something else you may or may not have on hand. It's called seam tape. I believe it's called seam tape. It's just a little teeny tiny narrow tape, clear tape that has paper on it that gets peeled off. So actually I can use this in the middle of my stem where I'm seeing it. The only problem is it does cast a shadow. But if you can kind of follow where it is on here and just kind of try to maneuver it through the middle. It's not as flexible as the bias tape is that we made, the stem material. But if you can just kind of follow it through till about right there. And yes, this might kind of crinkle up your fabric, but it's only temporary. It won't be forever. Whoops, can't get a hold of it. Cut that off. So there I've got it pretty much. I think I have it. Sometimes putting it out into the just natural light helps more than anything. So anyway, I can pull this paper off now. Hopefully. It's a little bit tricky because it's so thin. Whoops, didn't do it. There we go. So you just pull it off like you do any kind of tape that has a sticky side and then a non-sticky side where you pull that paper off. So if you can see that, there is some shiny tape on there now. And it's so thin, it's not going to interfere at all with the thickness of everything here. Now you want to make sure that this top end here, the one that goes down to the corner, make sure that that is a 1/4 inch away, because you don't want to sew your bias binding here, or your stem, into the seam allowance. So just kind of go across here. I'm just kind of putting it right where it's supposed to go. And you can always lift up and see, you know, where am I? Does it look like it's in the right place and all of that? Check and double check. It doesn't hurt to do that. So the size piece that they told you to cut is too long. They just want you to have enough. So what you do is you just trim off down here, even with the edge of your rectangle, that little piece. And then over here, you can cut off where it cuts off, where the leaf stops. Well, you can see it. The leaf is going to be over top of the end. So I want to cut that off right about there. And it doesn't have to be uber accurate. You know, you can always move your little leaf down if you cut a little too much off, or move it up if you need to. So there it is. It's sticking down. Now all I have to do is sew that down. I could also probably stand to put a few pins in it, just so that it doesn't shift and move too much. So I'm just going to get some of my small applique pins here. The short applique pins is what I want. I've got 2 different kinds of pins in my pin cushion right now that have the same head, but they're for 2 different purposes. So I'm having to sift through and find the right ones. I like the applique pins because, well, they work really good for applique, obviously, but they're very bendable. And as you can see, I don't know, you probably can't see, a lot of mine are bent pretty good. That's because they're extra bendable, if that's a word. So I'll just go ahead and put this in too, just for another insurance policy on getting it on here nice and evenly. Once I sew one side, it's not going to really matter. The pins will be out, and we can do that other side with just the sticky holding things in place, and plus your seam you already did, or your top stitch you already did, is there to hold it in place. So all I have to do now is just run a line of stitching, straight stitching, as close to the edge as I can get without falling off on both sides. And I have my green thread in, as I mentioned before now. So it's barely going to show up at all. So let me go ahead and sew this down, and then I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, there it is, all sewn up. Here are my stitches. I probably went a little long. I did a 3. I probably should have done smaller for applique, but it's done now. I'll do all my stems that way, and then I'll be doing a different kind of stitch on the flowers anyway. So there's the stem. Now it did crinkle just a little bit, but once I go over and iron this, it's going to be laying pretty flat. Now, in the pattern, it suggested that maybe you put a tearaway on the back, and I don't have any kind of product like that. I could probably put a really super light fusible on it, which I have, and I thought about doing that, but I think it's going to be okay. Let me give this a press, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Alright, all pressed. I didn't even use starch or anything on it like I do on my blocks. It's laying perfectly flat. I couldn't ask for it to be laying any flatter. So I don't think I need any kind of stabilizer on the back or anything like that. So now what we want to do is cut out our other pieces that we need for the flower, the berry, and the leaves. And so next time you see me, I will have some pieces ready for this one block. Now you're going to want to make 4 of these that look like this, and then you're going to want to do a mirror image. So for the mirror image, you're going to have to use the back side, I think, of your pattern. I'm not sure. I'll try it and see if there's some way I can do it. I think I can, because this is the only template that they gave. So, or maybe I just need to turn it like this is what I need to do. I'll figure that out. All right, so anyway, 4 turned this way and 4 the mirror image. And so these are the petals, the center of the flower, the berry, and the leaves. I'm going to go make some of these, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that first. Okay, looking at our pattern here, we need 40 of these little leaves. We need 16 of these circles and 24 of these petals. So I have a product here called Heat and Bond Light. If you've never used it, it's like heat and then in bond light, L-I-T-E. It's a brand name. That is the company's name. It's Heat and Bond. So they have different weights of Heat and Bond for different purposes. Heat and Bond Light is very good for applique. It's a very thin adhesive, and it has this nice paper back, and you can see with your light, you can see how to trace a whole bunch of those on there. So I need 40 of these leaves. I don't know if I can get 40 on here or not. I'll try. I've got more. I've got a whole bolt of this actually. So I'm just going to get them on there. I'm going to have to situate them on there, and then I'm going to actually lay this down onto the green fabric on the back side, iron it, and then peel it off, peel the paper off, and then I can take that and face up onto my fabric piece, my rectangle, up against my stem that I just did. But I will iron this onto the fabric first and then cut them out. So I have to draw it on here first, because it's just easier to do it now than when it's on the fabric, obviously. So I'm just going to start doing that. And there might be an easier way I'm not thinking of, but I'm pretty sure this is how I'm going to have to do it. So I'll probably just put you on time lapse for this. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to be able to get. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 21. So I need another piece about this big to make 19 more. I only need 5 to show you how to finish this piece out. So I am going to go ahead and iron a quantity of these on a piece of that fabric. I'll show you that next. And you're going to want to use the back side of your fabric. That's what's going to get ironed on here. This is the glue side. Okay, so then once we get these ironed on here and we cut them out and take the paper off, we have adhesive on the back, and then we can iron the front side, the right side up on our project. So I'm trying to figure out how many will fit on here comfortably. I'm just kind of looking here to see what I could get on this odd size piece of fabric. Also, there's no need to waste a lot of glue on fabric. Not that, you know, not that it matters. It's not going to be a whole ton of waste on any of this stuff, but there's no sense in gluing up a bunch of paper if you don't have to, or fabric. So I just have my Karen K. Buckley scissors here. I think they're the 6-inch ones. They work really, really good for applique. So something like this. There's a selvage right here, so I'm going to try to avoid that. And then maybe I could just go ahead and get this on here somehow. Let's see. Will that fit on there? Yes, it will. If I cut this off. Okay, so those 2 big triangles that I had left over is all I'm going to need for this. So, glue side down, pencil side up, paper side up, wrong side of your fabric up. Put it on your hottest and just press down. I like to stay 10 or so seconds in an area. Of course, there's instructions. You know how there's that little strip of instructions that come. You can also buy this in little packages, like if you don't need a whole bolt of it like I have. I was doing a big project, remember the Happy Days project? That had a lot of applique in it, and that's when I decided, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and invest in a bolt of Heat and Bond Light, and that way I'll always have it around. So that's what I did. So it's important also after you do this part that you let it cool before you start cutting. Any spots that look like they're not glued down, it'll look kind of opaque. So you can go back and hit it again. The main thing is you want that adhesive to get off the paper and onto the fabric and not still on the paper anywhere. Otherwise you won't have glue in that spot on your fabric piece. Okay, that should do it. I'm going to let this cool before I start cutting these out. Purposes of demonstration, I only need 5 of these to show you what I'm going to do. So I'll lay this aside and finish those later. Those will be for my other blocks. So what I want to do is just go through and make a nice, neat cut here on this. Now, I don't know a whole lot about needle turn applique. I've never done it. It's where you turn under the raw edge of your piece and you hide your stitches. It's all done by hand. There's no machine work on it. And of course you don't do any kind of adhesive thing at all like this. So I'm not going to demonstrate needle turn because I have no experience in it whatsoever. So I don't know, maybe people can put it in the comments. I don't know if you want to put down there how you do it exactly, but I think you have to make everything a little bit bigger because you're actually turning under. You're going to lose some of the size here of your pieces. So is that true? If so, let us know in case anybody wants to try that, or look up a video on needle turn before you start this project. Now once I get these set on my block, I'm going to have to finish them off some way. I'm going to have to, attach them more than just this glue that's on here. This glue is for the purpose of keeping it still while you sew it. So, we're going to have to put something around it. One thing you can do, it's totally acceptable, is just to have raw edge applique. And with that, you can just do those little straight stitches like I did on the stem. I would take it down to maybe like a 2 at least, maybe less than that. And just trace the inside of your leaf, for example. Just right inside here. And just leave those raw edges. Now eventually this glue will probably go away if it's something that's used a lot. And you might get some rustic looking fraying over time. And that's just the nature of it. So, if that's a preference, that's an option. Another option is to do a zigzag stitch on it, however tight you want to make it. If you're good at doing a zigzag stitch on the edge of fabric, you could do that. You could make it just a regular size zigzag, or make it a tiny one. You could make it a satin stitch if you wanted a really, really tight border around each one of these. That's what that would give. I like to do a blanket stitch or some other decorative stitch that would go with my project. I just need 5, so I'm gonna stop here and show you how this comes off. So I'm gonna save these. I don't want to forget about these two because I need them. Okay, so you can go ahead and peel this off now, and try not to, mess up your edges too much. And you see how shiny that is now? That's got glue on it, but it's very light. See, it's not thick at all. And I even starched this fabric. So I starched the fabric, I put the glue on it, and it's still very soft. If you had a project, this is just a side point, but if you had a project where you had a big round circle, it might be advisable before you iron this onto your fabric to cut out the excess in the center and just leave a rim around the edge of this. That way your project, your quilt, if you really truly want it to be a bed quilt that's used, you won't have a stiff area, big stiff area in your quilt. So on these little pieces, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to affect the softness of the quilt very much at all. So I'm going to go ahead and continue peeling these off. I'm going to leave that glue side up so that it doesn't get disturbed. Now these are completely cooled off. I was looking on the instructions and I saw that it said to just put the iron on it for 2 seconds, but that little craft iron I was using right there, it's never enough. So, you know, I'll leave it on longer. And then when you apply these to your fabric, it said 6 seconds. So I think it's going to be, I don't know that you can really go by that generally speaking. I think it's going to depend on your iron, how it does. You know, different factors. Might be a humidity issue that day that's causing it not to do what it's supposed to do. So just look for those opaque areas. And if you still have some, just keep giving it the heat. And it looks like this turned out really good because I'm not getting anything stuck to my paper still of glue. The glue is on the fabric. You can use tweezers or some other implement that will help you to get that loose. It's a little bit tricky to get the paper off, but not too bad. Okay, let me go get my block and let's put some leaves on. Okay, I'm just going to take a look at this. I don't really have to do it exactly like this. I mean, you know, I'm not going to lay this over here and see exactly where that leaf is supposed to go. I'm just going to kind of leave it here. Looks like it should go about like that. And then this one, I'm going to cover my raw edges with it. And then I want to make sure that I don't have this into my 1/4 inch seam. So I need to make sure I leave a little room for that. And then this one goes about right here. And there again, the 1/4 inch seam. So, you know, if I got my stem a little bit too low in one spot, I'm going to have to move it over. Looks like it needs to go about right there. About like that. Used to be about right there. Yeah, I think my stem is just a tiny bit low right there. But I'm just going to make sure I'm not going to get that leaf inside of my 1/4 inch down here. And I think it'll be okay. And then the other one goes about right here. And then this one goes about right here. Something like that. It doesn't have to be super, super perfect. And another thing you need to watch when you're doing applique, not on this project so much, but when you get to these you will, you're going to have to get these behind your center here. So be careful of that. You want to make sure that everything's layered up right. Now with these leaves, I didn't really have to layer anything. They just kind of butt up against the stem. Just make any adjustments you think you need to make for it. And then we'll just adhere them to it. Another decision that will have to be made is what sort of thread will you use? Will you use the green that we used on the stems for the leaves? Or will you use a contrasting color? Some people like contrasting colors. For example, if you want it to look a little more folksy, you can use like a black or a brown. You can even use, on this one, you could use a cream, I think, since the background is mostly cream and tan sorts of shades. I wouldn't go real bright white with it, but maybe a tan leaning towards cream, sort of, would be good. Okay, there we go. That's that much. Now, I'm going to go ahead and prepare these off camera. It's the same process as we did with our leaves, and I'll come back with those shapes. And again, that was on page 2 of your instructions. So you have 24 flower petals and 16 flower centers or berries. So I have 2 kind of reddish pinkish colors for that. So the berry over here is pretty straightforward. And now I have all the papers off except for this center here of my pieces. And I have layered them just like they look here. You can see that this one goes first, and then this one overlaps that one, and this one overlaps this one. So it's like 1, 2, 3. So I've got them positioned kind of, you know, based on the leaves and, you know, the distance between the leaves and the petals and the way it looks on the pattern. And then I'm going to stick my little center of my flower right here, and it is just barely touching, and I think that's about right there. It doesn't have to be absolutely 100% perfect. They all need to have just a tiny bit of variance in them to give an organic look to it. But just the basic, you know, where everything needs to go. And making sure you're staying out of those seam allowances all the way around the block, because you don't want any of your beautiful applique to be stuck in a seam allowance. So I've already ironed this one down. Now these 4 together, I'm just going to do it all in one fell swoop. And try not to agitate your iron. You don't need to do that. Just kind of lay it on there for a good while, especially since these are layered up. So we want to make sure everything gets the heat through it and the glue is working. Okay, that looks good. So I'm not going to touch it or anything until it cools off, and then we can start our stitching on it. Mirror images are my nemesis, but I did verify that you need 4 that are just like you see here on the front of the pattern, and then you need 4 flipping the pattern. So I outlined that so that I could see it good with the light box, the light pad, and I might even make it, you know, I really only use the stem part to get this, so I might actually color in all of this so that I can really see where it is when I have this piece over top and I'm laying this stem on there. So just verifying that yes, you do need to use both sides of your pattern piece, or you can take this to your printer or a printer and get a reverse image made of it, something like that, if you have the wherewithal to do that. Okay, so let's get on to some applique stuff. Bear with me on these camera angles. First, I'm going to show you what stitch I want to use that's truly a blanket stitch on this Brother PS500 machine. It's number 33. And the difference is the solid stitch is on the outside, and then the little stitches that go over the top of your applique piece are towards the inside of it. So you see some over here that are, you know, they're slanted, they're kind of fancy, and they've got little dot, 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 but it's the wrong direction. So you have to use this one. Even this one looks pretty darn good, doesn't it? But it's but it's on the wrong side. You could use these stitches if you wanted. It would just give kind of a different look. Here's one too that would probably work pretty good, that would mimic just a regular zigzag but a little bit more secure. Yeah, you can just use even a straight stitch. I don't know. You could even use a decorative stitch, but that would take so long. I'm not going to do that. Although it sounds interesting to do a decorative stitch on applique, and I have done it, and yes, it's very slow. Anyway, number 33 is your blanket stitch on my Brother machine. It might be the same on all Brother machines that have some stitches, so whatever. Whatever your machine is, just look for something that looks sort of like that. I'm at an extremely odd place to be sewing because of having to set the camera up. This is not optimum either, but it's the only way I can operate the machine and get as close as I can for you to see it. So you're going to want to change your foot out to a applique foot. This one has a little plastic thing there, but you just want to make sure that you have this big space here for your needle right here, because your needle's going to have to move back and forth inside there. A lot of the feet for machines don't have this plastic part. They just have the big open foot area. And that's so you can see, you know, where you're going, what you're doing, you know, when you need to turn and all that stuff. Any other kind of foot would make that difficult. So I'm just going to snap this on. And then lift it up. And then also I have made up the exact, I'll say, thicknesses of fabrics that I'm going to be stitching over, so that I can get an accurate idea of what these stitches are actually going to do on my actual project. So I just got some scrap and a little bit of leftover from the yellow center. And I have the heat and bond light on the back of this. This has just a tiny bit of starch in it. Just kind of replicate what you're going to be sewing on, so you can get an accurate read for how everything's going to react. So you're always going to be sewing on the right hand side of your piece. The inside bulk of it will be to the left. So let's see if I can. You want to take this tooth right here, or toe, that's a toe, not a tooth, and put the inside of it to the outside of your piece that you're going to applique. Okay, and then you're going to want to set your needle over to where it's right there on that edge, but not off the edge, because you don't want it to hit your. That looks about right. Let me do one more. Okay, 7 as far as it wants to go. So it knows that of all the feet that you can use on this machine, that's the farthest right you can go. So that's okay. We can verify that it's not going to hit the toe of the foot. And it looks like maybe I need to move just a little bit to the right a little bit more, because you want that solid line of stitching to be right at that edge, not over it, not way far away from it, right next to it. Okay. Alright, so I need to find 33. Let's get that set up on my machine. I can just type it in. There we go. And then I'm going to do maybe like a 2 on the length and see how that does. 2.0 on the stitch length, and then we'll see how that does. I'm going to drop my needle down. And my thread is not in my needle. So let me get that fixed. Alrighty, now I am all ready to go here. So I'm taking my toe and placing it just where I can see a little bit of the red here. That's just kind of the way it's looking like it wants to do for this foot and this setting. Let's see where that goes. Oh my, that's not it. Let's try that again. Okay, so somewhere along the line I've lost my 7 position. So let's do that again. This is why you practice first. Oh, I see what that's going to do. That's going to make a really big one. Okay, let's try this again. Let's go back to 3.5. And I'm going to have to look at my needle and see where it is instead of using my toe. I'm glad you all are along for this ride, because this is watching me struggle is a good way for you to learn. I learned the lesson instead of you learning the lesson. So it may not be true about putting your needle all the way over to the right hand side. I don't know where I heard that, where that came from in my mind, but just pay attention to where your needle's going to fall. And also kind of get a memory pattern for how this stitches, so that when you get to a corner and you want to stitch around a corner, you can do that very neatly by adjusting the fabric under the foot. You can raise your presser foot a little bit, move your fabric around so that your stitches will fall where you want them to. Now I'm going really slow. Let's see how this looks. Well, I'm over a little too much, I think. So let me try this again down here. I'm going to get a little closer. No, that's not the direction I need to go. I need to get closer than I was, but not as far as I was before. Let's see what that does. No. Let's try it here. Yeah. Got to get that needle right on the very edge of your applique piece. Let's see if I did it right this time. Now before you get to a corner, now we don't have any sharp corners too much in our little round pieces we have on this project, but you can here about, a 1/4 of an inch or less away from your corner, kind of judge where that's going to fall. And you want your outer down needle, the outer one, to be right on that. So I'm going to adjust a little bit here so that that does that. Okay, so that hit the needle right at the edge. Kind of I'm a little bit short. We'll see what it does one more. A little bit better. It's a little bit off. I'll show you. You can kind of correct as you're guiding it through. See, I could tell I needed to go a little bit back there. There. That got it right where I needed it, I think. Yeah, that was better than the other corner. You just gotta have to, like I said, get a memory of how those stitches are formed and when the needle is going up and down and where you can adjust your stitches there for that corner. I've got this on turtle, so I'm going to take it up a little bit. I think my width is okay. See, now I'm just keeping my needle right on the edge of that fabric, trying not to get on top of it and not too far away from it either. It's like stitching the ditch, you know, you want to get in the ditch and not to the left or the right of the ditch. Okay, so now is where I would stop and kind of judge what's going to happen here. There. Close. Lining that needle up with the edge of your piece again. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay, so I started over here. And I kind of got my needle position worked out. I was way too far. So I got it over in the right way, but in adjusting the needle position, it gave me fatter stitches, stitch width. So I couldn't use my needle position to adjust this. I had to actually begin to manually guide my needle, the point of my needle, along the edge. And you can see I was off. It's too far. You don't want to see that pink between those stitches. So then I came down here and goofed around a little bit more. Still not right. Then I got it. Okay, I like this width. This is a 3.5 and the distance is a 2. I like that. So I come down here and this was my first practice at turning a corner. I did okay. That little cross right there is not optimal. So turned. I probably would let it go. Taking out these stitches later and fixing is a nightmare. So just be sure that you get close. I would leave that. It would have to be pretty awful for me to take it out. So I get lined back up with the outside again. And then here, I'm making my adjustments correctly. And you can see how my needle went from here to here to here, back to here. It was down. I turned it, came back down, started again. And I tried really hard this time to keep my needle right at the edge of my piece. And it looks good. I like that. Now I'm not going to use this green thread on everything. I'll probably be changing my thread out. I'll use the green on the green parts, but then on the flower and the berry and the center of the flower, I'll change in and out. So a good thing to do is go ahead and get all your blocks ready for sewing instead of just doing one at a time. Otherwise, you're going to be changing several threads 8 times. So that's something to keep in mind. Today, I'm going to go ahead and do that one for you because I'm not going to have time to do all 8 and have the video ready for you. So I have another piece here. I can continue to practice, or if I feel okay with it, I can just continue on. Also, this one, when I turned, I was getting a little bit far away there. But it's okay. I missed by about a stitch and then turned again. So this is ideal. This is not good, but okay enough. This is a little bit better than okay. A little bit better than this one. I don't know. They're about equal. They both have equal problems. This is what you're aiming for. But if you don't get it perfect, don't worry about it. The stitches are going to hold it. Unless you get way out here somewhere and you're just barely holding on with one of these stitches, then you might have to do something there. But it's sewed very well. It's not going anywhere. Okay, so I think I'll go ahead and, since I have my green in, I'll go ahead and do my leaves. And I'll have you watch me from the other side of the machine, that side, maybe in time lapse. I also made a note with Sharpie that this is stitch number 33 and this is my width and length, because if I come back and do this in a week, I won't remember that. So I'm going to keep this around so that I can always have this information and be able to set my machine up correctly just like it was when I left off. So let's get to doing some of this. It's kind of fun. Should I start down here? Let's start down here with this leaf. Okay, so here is my first leaf. Now you'll notice when you're going around a curve, you'll notice that sometimes you'll get to the apex of that curve and you'll have to leave your needle down and lift your presser foot up just slightly and pivot. Not much, because this is a very gentle curve. Now when we get ready to do these, you'll probably see where I'll have to do that a lot. But this turned out pretty good, and go all the way around your leaf. Just because it's up against the stem, don't stop. You need to just keep going there and stitch all the way around. My point is pretty good where I had to pivot. I think I said that earlier we didn't have any sharp corners, but we absolutely do on these leaves. So just kind of remember, about 1/4 of an inch before you get to the end, you may have to adjust a little bit by lifting up the fabric and moving it just a tad bit forward or backward to get those corner stitches looking right. I think I did pretty good. But this is nice. It's turning out nice. And it doesn't take too long. I did change my speed a little bit. I started out really, really slow at first. But then I had a little bit more confidence after a few seconds and was able to go ahead and turn the speed up higher so that I could go faster. Just always work on the right hand side of the piece that you're sewing. Well, I'm happy with the way this looks. And the fact that you use the same color thread does hide some of those tricky corners that you may not have gotten just exactly like you wanted to. I did fairly good on mine. I think the biggest offense that I had was right here on this one. Let me get my little pointer. Right here on this one, I got a little bit far. See how you can see that little tiny, teeny tiny peek out of this fabric? But it's not bad. I mean, I'm okay with it. So there's all the green. So now all I have to do, it didn't take very long. All I have to do is this, and these. These ones, I've been thinking about this, and I think I'm going to go this way around on the petals first, and then start again here, and go all the way down here, and then start again here, and go around to there. And then I would just have this circular one to do over top of that. So if you're looking at it this way, start on this side at the bottom. So if your stem is at the top here, start here and go around like that. And go all the way around the edges. Don't forget that just because these are glued down, you still need to sew that right there where it's laying over top of it. So you're kind of going in reverse of how you placed them when you ironed them down. When I ironed these down, I put this one, and this one. But to applique, I'm going to start here and go the opposite direction. That's what makes the most sense to me. Maybe that doesn't make sense to you and something else would work better. You can do it however you like. Okay, let me see what kind of thread I need for this. I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera, and I'll bring you back so that you can see this up close and in detail. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing as the leaves. But I'll show you how I overlapped these and then did the center over the top. Not anything different really. You know, different shapes, different pieces, you do different things, but not much different. Okay, more fun ahead. Alright, there's my first of 8 applique blocks, and this did not take that long to do. It was kind of fun, and, well, it was fun, not kind of fun, it was fun. I wasn't thinking about, oh, I've got 7 more of these to do. I was thinking, oh, this is fun, and it's going kind of fast, so don't get psyched out about how much you have to do, because it tends to go fast. My pink thread, I don't know. It's not my favorite. It shows up quite a bit on this. You can see how my green doesn't hardly show up at all. The yellow was about the right color. The pink was okay on the flower, I think. I'm just going with what thread I have. I'm not going to go out and buy thread just for applique on this project. You might choose to, and you might choose to get some nice satiny looking thread for applique sometimes for some projects. But this will do. I'll just use thread from my thread stash and it'll all be good. I didn't have any problems on these round pieces. You can kind of manipulate pretty well, adjusting. Sometimes I have to lift the presser foot, sometimes I don't. It just depends. With the weight of the petals behind this, I was able to, move that under the presser foot in a round sort of way pretty easily. Out here, this one I had to stop and start quite a bit, but it looks pretty good. I'm happy with it. And if this is just something that you just don't feel like you can do, you can always just take a small stitch all the way around your raw edges there of your pieces. So don't give up. It's not hard really to learn this blanket stitch if you have a machine that has stitches. You can always do the hand route if you want to. I think you could probably get 8 of these done easily in a month's time doing it by hand. It would be, you know, an evening project for a while, but you know, we have all these options. Also, I wanted to mention that on the front of your machine, if you have a computerized machine, there's a button that's usually near the reverse button that just looks like a little open circle, and that is a knotting. That's for knotting, beginning and ending on your quilts. Like if you're doing free motion quilting or applique, you can put a knot in it instead of back stitching over it. Because if you back stitch over your applique stitches, you're going to have a little dark spot there or a little raised bump. So this particular stitch, it does kind of go backwards and forwards, so I don't think it would easily come out anyway. But if you have that little dot button on the front of your machine, that's what that does. It knots it. So you just push that a couple times and it'll make a knot for you. So I don't know how strong those knots are, but I used it on mine. So you can't even see where they are. But there we go. All right, let's get back to the general construction of this month's assignment on this block of the month, and we'll finish out the video. Once you have all of your applique pieces done, you already have your cut pieces for the rest of this border that goes around the area that we've already finished. I have it here on the table. I have one corner. You have these corner pieces. I don't think I showed you these in the beginning because I found later that I hadn't cut them out yet. So these are just some, these are these 4 right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you'll have your applique block. You're just going to have to use this as your guide as far as how to put this on here. And then you'll have your smaller cream piece, and then it'll repeat in reverse. This will be next to this. Okay, so then after that you'll have the opposite. You'll have for your sides, you'll have the opposite. This will be like this, let's pretend, as you can see here. And then you'll have your longer piece that you cut that's cream. You'll have this piece that will connect with this one. So just use this. I'm not really teaching you anything in here. Right here, right now, I'm just showing you that's the next step after the applique. There's really nothing left to do. And I do believe they have you. Yes, they have you make 2 like this and then 2 like this. So I mean, you can do it however you want. You can do, you know, the other way if you want to, but this is the way it's supposed to be. 2 like this and 2 like this, and then that'll go all the way around this section that we already have done. So obviously this is not a month that, you know, things are just going to all be done in one episode or one Wednesday video. I'm not going to make another Wednesday video putting this together, but you will see later on as I get this done, probably on a Finish It Friday, maybe on another Wednesday video of another subject. I might show it at some point. Obviously, we'll show you this part all finished and attached. And then after that, we only have 2 more months. So we already have these stars finished. All we're going to have to do in December are these. I say all. That's probably more work than these all put together. And then the last part is the 2 smaller borders. So, you know, we're getting to the end of this really quick. So I hope you're making progress on yours. I hope you're up to date and ready to jump into this applique and get it done, get it attached, and then we're in the home stretch. So thanks for listening today. Hope you learned something. It's always a learning experience for me. I learn from my mistakes, so you don't have to. But yeah, some of this applique stuff you do just have to practice. If you don't do it every day, you kind of have to refresh your memory and remember how to do it, what you like to do, maybe try some new things out. That's the fun of quilting. All right, thanks again, and I will see you next month, first Wednesday of the month, for our next part of our block of the month. All right, have a good one. Bye.